war stories. And the different battalions and groups and divisions that they were in and what they did, and, all over Europe and Korea and different places. They were in Vietnam. And they always had the neatest stories, but, coordination in that is essential. It's essential to be where you're supposed to be, just sort of like camp, be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. Isn't that right? And to do your best, and the coordination it took and the training it took to get to that coordination, it just don't come by accident. And the Lord's church is just like that. We must be coordinated. We do have this battle, and if we're not at the right places at the right time with the right equipment doing the right things, the Lord's church will be defeated. We'll be defeated. It's essential that we take these things seriously. As you know, a battalion is a unit of infantry consisting of a headquarters and 2 more units. In order for a battalion to be successful, those in charge must coordinate the companies of the battalion. They must decide where they will be and when they will attack. Otherwise, you may have soldiers being killed by friendly fire, soldiers pinned down without needed support. In like manner, the church must be coordinated so that she can stand against the forces of Satan. It's essential. In these 3 examples, we see the body as an example of coordination. We can understand that. We've all got fingers and toes. We see it when most of us never are married, so we see how that would also be coordination that we could see. The church needs to be like that. And we can see, even though we may have never been in the military, how essential it is to be coordinated in military situations as the army of God. The church can, from the 3rd chapter of Nehemiah, we can see how we can take this chapter and move it over into our New Testament to see how we as the church must be coordinated. I know as y'all was reading these chapters and all you saw was names and jobs, names and jobs, names and jobs, and you said that. I'm just not getting this. But we will. We'll get something from this. God's word never contains filler material. You can just mark that down. There's no filler material in this book. Every word has a purpose. And hopefully we'll glean some of the purposes from this chapter today. But we're looking for the word coordination. The workers are coordinated in 3 different, we're going to look at 3 major ways that this group of people from Jerusalem was coordinated, how they worked together, how they was able to accomplish in 52 days what hadn't been accomplished in years and years and years by other leaders. But they were able to do it. How did this occur? How did Nehemiah put these people together in such a way that all this just happened? Now, as you read through this chapter, I want you to think about this too. Maybe you didn't pick it out, but there was one group of people that were negative and one group of people that sort of stood out for another reason. And I hope y'all pick those 2 out as you're reading through these different groups of people in the 3rd chapter. Nehemiah recognized that not everyone has the same abilities, and that's our first one, ability. He put these people to work by their different abilities. Not everybody has the same ability. If we look into this room, we see that. We understand that. Not everybody's the same. Although all was able to help in some way, and that's true too. We have to realize that I can help. I have a purpose. I have a job in the church. A careful examination of this chapter suggests that Nehemiah arranged the workers according to their ability. For example, some workers were told simply to repair and build the wall. That's all it said about them. We find this in chapter number 3 and verses number 4. And we see these Miramoth, one preacher told me when he got to the words he couldn't pronounce, he just said buttermilk. Maybe I should do that too. Just say buttermilk. Well, I'll try to say them. Meshullam and Zadok. And and there were some others that talk about all they did. Their job was to repair and build the wall. Simple explanation. That's all it said. But some of them will say a lot more than that. Nehemiah goes on in great detail about some. For example, he records that Shallun repaired the gates of the wall, covered it, set the doors, the locks, and the bars in chapter 3 and verse 15. It seems that some workers were coordinated according to their abilities. In like manner as the church, we are also realize that members of the body are different have different abilities. The amount of work and the difficulty of the work should be distributed with that in mind. Now, I promise you, as an elder, I may not recognize all that. I may make a mistake. Sometimes you need to let me know, I'm not good at that, or I'm good at, don't ever say I'm not good at anything. I don't want to hear that. But we all can do something. And we need to be in our place doing what we need, what we can do. Yes, Bill?
I'm not going to go into much detail about it, but I think it's all of the military branches. Well, they're treating their people in such a way that at any given moment in time, they'll end up being called up to take care of our country.
That's good to know, too. Thank you. The amount of work and the difficulty of the work should be distributed with that in mind. No doubt, y'all remember the parable of the talents. And that's another good, perfect example of, we've got this landowner who's going into a far country, going away. And he has these assets, I guess you could say. That'd be the best way to describe it, assets. It's money. And he gives them to 3 different servants by their abilities that he perceives, the abilities that he perceives, 5, 2, and 1. And then he comes back after a time, and they come, and the one with 5, y'all know he brought back 10, and the one with 2 brought back 4, and the one with 1 brought back 1. And he goes through this long speech as he faces his Lord there that, I knew that you are. But here's your 1. And he was right. He knew that his Lord demanded of him more than just showing up. And that's all he did. He just showed up. He just brought back what he was given. And that can't be our mindset today in the church. We must know that, showing up just doesn't cut it. There's more demanded of you than that. We know that this Lord talked about here is our God. And I'm afraid some of we're so stained with sin. We're so we're just covered up in sin. We won't even have the 1. I mean, what has God blessed you with? You have enough mind to find your way here today, so I know you're fairly smart. And we need to think about that when we think about what am I doing for the Lord? What are my abilities? What are my talents? And if you don't know, maybe you need to work on that. Maybe we with judgment, and we won't even have the 1 with us. We'll have lost that due to sin. But that's a tremendous example, the parable of the talents, to see that coordination is essential, and the Lord demands it. It's just not optional. Coordination is not something, well, I'll take it or leave it. Well, it doesn't work in any other part of life. Why we think it's going to work in the church, that we can just ignore being coordinated, working together as a team, as an army. The second one we're going to look at, well, as was the verse I was going to read from Ecclesiastes 10, verse 7. I'll read it. I have seen servants upon horses and princes walking as servants upon the earth. Now, what was Solomon mean by that? I've seen princes walking and servants riding. They weren't where they were supposed to be. And sometimes that's us. Sometimes we're not where we're supposed to be. We're not accomplishing what we're supposed to be about. And that can happen sometimes. Sometimes as elders, we see eldership sometimes and we have to guard ourselves against this. Sometimes we're out doing something that we should be doing something else. Caring for the flock, not trimming the bushes. And sometimes we have to guard against that we're where we're supposed to be doing what we're supposed to be doing. But even in Solomon's day, this was a problem. Second one, we looked at ability, and it's activity. It's been found that, and you've seen it too, that some people work harder than others. Some people work faster than others. Some people have more zeal than others. You ever worked with somebody that's hyper? At work, I'm hyper. A lot of people don't like working with me. And it's not because I do a better job. Let's move along. And sometimes I worked with my Uncle Ralph for years and my dad's brother, and he was the opposite. He was slow and meticulous. And we just didn't jihad too good together. I know y'all don't use that word jihad together, but it's like, well, if someone knows what it means, we just didn't do it very well. But, so, you know, active, how active are you? And that needs to be coordinated also. Sometimes you will even find a man with lesser natural ability, getting more done than a man of great natural ability. We see this in sports all the time. You see this fellow in college, he's the be-all to end-all athlete, and then he gets to the pros and he washes out because he don't have the desire, don't have the heart. And sometimes that can be us in the church. We don't have the zeal. They're often ones with the most hustle that make the biggest difference, not the ones with the most ability. So you can say, well, I'm not that bright, I'm not that smart, I don't have that many talents, but what about the hustle part? Do I want to see the job completed? Do I want to see this through? If nothing else, we should want to see it through. We want to see heaven. We want to see the Lord. We want to see it through. We want to see the church prosper. Is that what you and I, is that our goal? Each one of the people there in Jerusalem wanted this city complete. They wanted to see the reproach removed. They wanted to see Jerusalem as the city of God back where it needs to be. That was their goal. They all saw that. They had a common goal. Did we have a common goal as the church in Bremen? We have a common goal as a member of that church, as a Christian. As you know, inspiration doesn't, it takes a lot of inspiration to achieve that sometimes. Nehemiah apparently was that person to inspire these people, to remind them of all the things it would take to reach their goal. And that's why being an assembly is so important. It's where we receive much of our inspiration. Home Bible study is essential, but to encourage one another, to hear lessons that encourage us, to have brothers and sisters that encourage us. You know, sometimes the simplest thing is tremendous encouragement. You ever see some of these old brothers and sisters that, you know, in their 90s and they barely can get in here, and they're here every single time the doors are open, and then we think we have an excuse because my toenail got broke that I can't assemble. You know, we need to encourage one another, inspire one another, motivate one another, and this is part of it, to be here every time the doors are open, every time. But activity, to find to work at our pace, to find the thing that we can do at that pace, not be slothful. You know, if there's a verse that uses slothful, and there are plenty of them in the Old Testament, I think Jan's quoted them to me. I don't know why she does that, but she's quoted a few of them to me, and you know, when I just didn't move as fast as she thought I ought to move sometimes. You can then go on the same thing else, knowing that there will be rest until the task is completed. The task is, you know, I wonder if that motivated these people to know that when we get through, we get to rest. That's why I wonder if that was one of the things that motivated them to complete it in that short of time, 52 days, to put up all this wall around Jerusalem, to lift all those stones back into their place, put those gates back where they go. I wonder if being through. You ever been motivated by seeing the end, to want to be through and take a look at what you've completed and be able to rest? To the Christian, our rest comes at completion. It doesn't come now. Rest comes at completion. That's true about anything. It's not now. And we need to see that. Activity, ability, activity, work at the speed, but work at some speed. The next one, and this one's kind of different. He coordinated the work by address, by where they lived. And y'all saw that. As you was reading through that chapter, you noticed that much of the work was done where? Close to their homes, wasn't it? Now, what was the wisdom in that? Let's look at some of the wisdom and why that would have been important, that he put those people working close to their building, putting up that wall, putting up those gates right close to where they lived. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. In addition to their ability, Nehemiah seems to have coordinated people according to their dress. Over and over again, in this third chapter, we find men that are near their own homes. For example, Jedediah was repairing over against his house in verse number 10. Hashabiah was working near his house in verse 17. Mashanon was building by his house in verse 23. Likely the first time that we read this chapter, we don't take much note, but however, over and over again we see it, and we start to see the wisdom in this process. There's much advantage by this coordination of putting this family in this place, doing this task close to their home. We see the coordination in that. They're able to spend more time with their families. They don't have to go all the way across town to work and then spend that time back and forth. How many of y'all have to travel very far to work every day? I know Steve does. I know some of y'all travel long ways to work. Martin does. Well, there's a lot of time sitting. Beth does, and she'll let you know too. But what if you worked right there in your home? Wouldn't that be neat? You wouldn't have all that travel time. Spend more time doing something else. But Nehemiah apparently saw that was a big advantage to be close to their home. There would be greater interest in the work and the impact it would have on their families. If you were building a wall next to your home and you was afraid the enemy may break through the wall, how well would you put that wall together? Do you think it'd make a difference? Well, we'll just put it up any old way. That's good enough for government works, what people say today. But you would take a lot more interest. That wall wouldn't come down. Bulldozer couldn't bring it down. If my family was right inside that wall, if my children was right on the other side of that wall, I would make sure that wall would stand. And that's part of the coordination in that. Also, the part of the thing would be, we could say, it showed our children and our grandchildren, this is what we did. Pride. Do you take pride in our work? Do we take pride in where we attend worship? Do we take pride in what we're a part of in worship? When I grew up, I was in the same work my dad was in. Most of y'all know that. And when I was growing up, we'd be riding, going somewhere, and my dad could point out all the people that he had made sure they had water in their homes. And guess what I do today? Same thing. If you ride with me very far, I'll tell you I won't know their names, but I'll know how much water I found there. There's great pride in our work. We need to take pride in our work, and there's a great wisdom in this coordination by putting these families near their homes in the work that they're doing. Also, if there were attack, there was always a threat, and you'll read this throughout this book, when Tobiah and all those renegades were always threatening to come in and attack them while they were building. So there was great relief to know that I'm right here near my family when I'm working. We'll read later on that they had a spear in one hand and a trowel in the other. They were working and protecting all at the same time. And it was a lot better to know that I'm right here at my family. I want not across town. If attack comes, I can see my children, I can see my wife. I'm right here protecting them. Wisdom in this coordination, the way that Nehemiah coordinated this work in chapter number 3. If we are going to build the Lord's church, we must take the brick that Nehemiah gave us, the brick of coordination, put it in its right place. It must be in our minds and our hearts that we be coordinated with brothers and sisters in Christ. The right coordination, even with the world, there takes a certain amount of coordination if we're going to teach them the truth. Can't ignore them. That's where our work is. It's in the lost. And especially our coordination with God and Jesus Christ. And we get that through our building our faith, through Bible study, through worship. Coordination. It's essential. When that brick's missing, things fall apart. They just don't work. Just like this city had laid in ruins for years and years and years because that coordination did not exist. When this coordination does not exist in our lives, there will be souls that will pay the consequence. It may be close friends we never told about Jesus. It may be children that never saw the right examples. It may be spouses who fell away or never became Christians because the coordination was not there. You know, we talked about the owner that had gone into the far country a while ago. That owner was Jesus Christ when he ascended back into heaven, and he left these things with these, not three, but all of us. He left his assets with us. His church is left with us. One day he's going to come back for a reckoning, and that should be an extremely sobering thought to help us put into perspective the coordination that's required. When that reckoning occurs, if I use the right coordination to make the best of these things that he has left me here with, will I have 2 talents, 1 talent, no talents? Will I have 10? Coordination, it's essential. This chapter talks about that. We see it throughout. When we first read it and first thought all these names and all these jobs, I'm just not seeing it. And then